on the top of Daf Yud Aleph Amid Beis, the Brisa wants to know, once we've included under the word Bisharecha gates, all gates, even gates that lead to storehouses, are chayav mezuzah. I might take it a step further. Beishar achsadja mirpeses, even a gatehouse, which is a small gateway that leads you to a larger gateway, or a mirpeset, that means something that's high up. Talmud Lomar Bayis. Ma Bayis miyuchad lidira, yatzu elu she'en miyuchadim lidira. So you can have entranceways, but they lead into walkways, and they don't lead you into a house, or they lead into certain galleries that are not used for residence. And the pasuk says bias. Bias means for residence, coming to exclude this. Now the Brisa continues. Yochal shanim arba af beis hakisei, beis haburski, beis hamerchotz, beis hatfila. And these are places like an outhouse, a bathhouse, a place for tefillah, and a tannery for use to. And in all these cases, a foul odor. I might think these are also included under that generic term, all-inclusive charecha. Talmud Lomar Bayis. Ma Bayis also lekavod. You wouldn't take a king into these kinds of places that have foul odor. It would undermine his esteem. Afkala osu lekavod. Any place that's earmarked for dignified functions is chayav mezuzah. Yatzu elu she'en asim lekavod. So a bias is paradigmic of something that's miyuchad lekavod, for dignified activity. Yochel, I might think shani marbe af harabayis v'alashakos v'azoros. There's a gateway into the Temple Mountain, to the Harabayis, and there are many different shakos, chambers, inside the compound of the Beis Hamikdash, and there are the entranceways, many entranceways, probably 7 entranceways into the Azara. I might think all the above require mezuzah. Certainly dignified activity. Talmud Lomer Bayis, ma bayis hu chol, af kol shehu chol. Yatzu elu shein kodesh. Those entranceways in the Beis Hamikdash and into the Harabayis, into the Azara, into the Lishakos, are considered kodesh. Bayis stam, when we see the word bayis, it's for chol. It's for mundane, everyday secular activity, but not something that is designated for kodesh. Again, we're going to have a problem here because of synagogues, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But first, the punchline of this Gemara is tiyuvta. We have here an explicit brisa that says a stam otar is chayev in mezuzah, because the brisa says bisharecha echad, including refes, matbein, otzos yayin, and otzos shemen. Explicit that we are obligated, required to put up a mezuzah in a storehouse. And based on this Gemara, most of the Rishonim paskin, and it's up to paskin in Shulchan Aruch, that storehouses are indeed chayev in mezuzah. The only exception is the Rambam in Perek Vav Mihilchos Mezuzah. The Rambam paskins that a storehouse is part to be mezuzah. And this is one of the rare occasions that the Rambam dissents against the Rif. And it's not only the Rif, it's also the Rush. Okay, the Rambam doesn't have to care about the Rush as much as about the Rif, but the Rif and later the Rush wrote an entire treatise called Hilchos Mezuzah, as did the Rif, and they paskin like the Maskana, the Gemara Tiyufta, that the Gemara accepts the Brisa that supports Rav Kahana that a stam otzer is chayiv mezuzah. Tani Rab Shmuel Bar Yehuda Kami Berava Shisha Shiorim Pturim Min HaMezuzah. There are 6 gates that are potur mi mezuzah. Beis HaTeven, Beis HaBokar, Beis HaEitzim, Beis HaOtzros, Sharei Modai, V'Shar She'ena Makura, V'Shar She'ena Gavoa Asor. Now, on this list, we have storehouses, and the Gemara has concluded the way all the Rishonim learned it, except for the Rambam, that we paskin like Rav Kahana, and a storehouse is chayiv in mezuzah. There are 2 possibilities here. Either this brisa reflects on that one sheet, and Rav Kahana admits that there is one Tana who holds that storehouses stam otzos are potter mezuzah, or alternatively, even if a storehouse is chayiv in mezuzah, but it could be the sha'ar that is not the immediate door, but it's an outer gateway that leads into the door of the Beis Otzer. The sha'ar is not chayiv in mezuzah. But what's interesting here is the shita of the Tosas Rid. The Tosas Rid says that this brisa, when it speaks about Beis HaTeven, Beis HaBokar, Beis HaEitzim, Beis HaOtzros, is referring to a case of noshim ni osos bahem, which means rochatzos bahem. And Rav Kahana admitted that even if I hold the stam otzer is chayiv mezuzah, but if it's also designated for bathing purposes, that transforms the status of the base otzer into a base hamerchatz, and it's part of mi mezuzah. Now, Shar HaModai, that's a very interesting, it's an archway, and apparently this was common in the architecture of Modai. And apparently it was a very beautiful curved archway that was very unique to Modai. And then we have Shar She'eno Mikora. There is no roof on top. It's open. It's open to the sun, to the rains, and the elements. And we're going to soon see that one of the critical conditions for the shem bias to be mechayiv mezuzah is it has a roof on top, and it has to have 2 posts on both sides, plus a lintel on top, a roof on top. Now, when we say that a doorway is, or a shar is chayav in mezuzah, in those cases, when it leads into a base tiro without a base hamerchatz, what is the minimum height of the shar? Shar she'ena gavoa sora, if it's very, very small, you can have a very small, you'll even see it here in Yerushalayim occasionally, a small little gateway. That's potter mezuzah. It has to reach a minimum height of 10 tfachim. Not only that, it has to have a width of 4 tfachim. Okay. Amalei. So Rava says to Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, who quoted this brisa, Pasachta b'shisha v'salachta b'shiva. You opened up by mentioning 6 sharim. On the list, I count 7. Amalei shara modai tanoi. When the brisa says 6, it means 6 that are universally accepted as potter mi mezuzah. But the shar modai is actually a machlokes tanoim. The sanya. Now, let's keep in mind that the shar modai is an archway. An archway has a curvature to it. Now, as a result of the curvature, it moves inwardly. So at some point, when it starts curving as an archway, it loses that minimum width of 4 tfachim. Is it enough that there's a width of 4 tfachim going up vertically between the two posts? And we don't care about the fact that the archway on top above 10 tfachim is curved and doesn't have a width of 4 tfachim. Are you following me? So you have the side posts, and then they curve in. When they curve in, if you were to draw a straight line going from east to west towards the top of the curvature, it doesn't have 4 tfachim to it. So this is the major debate about the Shar Moda. The Sanya, we learned to the Brisa, Kippah, an archway that has a curvature. Rebbe Meir Mechayev b'mezuzah v'chachamim potrim. Now, first the Gemara says, and Abai is going to embellish this and clarify this. What are the parameters of this machlokes between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim? Meaning, let's clear the pathway about cases in which everybody agrees, both Rabbi Meir and even Chacham, that you're chayav in a mezuzah in a curved archway. And what cases does everybody agree that you're potter from a mezuzah in a curved archway, even according to Rabbi Meir? Shavin she'im yesh b'raglei asara shechayaves b'mezuzah. If going up vertically, you reach a height of asara from the two side posts, it reaches the height of asar tfachim before it starts curving, then even the Chachamim agree that you chayiv in mezuzah. However, if the opening itself, meaning the distance between the two side posts, is less than 3 tfachim, then lav klui, everybody agrees, even Reb Meir, that you're not chayiv in mezuzah. Inami yesh b'raglei shlosh v'eina gvoa asar, as we saw before, if the vertical posts going up are less than 10 tfachim high, everybody agrees you're potter from mezuzah. So then, what is the battlefield here between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim? Lo nechleku ella b'gavoa asara yesh b'raglei shlosha. You have all the basic ingredients. You have the side posts that reach a vertical height of 10 tfachim. You have a width between one leg and the other of 3 tfachim. I mentioned 4 tfachim before I made a mistake. 3 tfachim. But ein berochva arba. Well, so maybe I didn't make such a mistake. Just one second. Yesh b'raglei shlosha. Oh, I see. Here we have to go into a sugya on daf. I think it's Tzadi Zayin, Tzadi Vav, Tzadi Zayin in Shabbos, called Lavud. Lavud means that the karka, the ground, is considered to go up 3 tfachim. So 3 tfachim above the ground is still considered ground level. And now we have the side posts going up 3 tfachim. But once they go up 3 tfachim, then they start getting narrow. And the curvature begins. V'ein barachva arba. So if you go up from 3 tfachim to the height of 10 tfachim, now you don't have a rochav of arba tfachim. However, and here we get to see an insight into Rabbi Meir's shita that you chayav in mezuzah in this archway of Madai. Yesh ba lachuk lashlima li arba. The archway is set into stone, into a background of a wall, and if you would chip away at the wall and knock off some of the stones, then you would be mashlin li arba. You would complete the opening, the entranceway, into a 4 tfachim. Rabbi Meir savar chokikim lahashlim. According to Rabbi Meir, we can imagine as if he had punched out the top, and by carving out the sides of the curvature, making it into a square kind of shape, you would now have exactly what you need, meaning you'd have a width of 4 tfachim. So again, in this case, the curvature begins before he gets up to 10 tfachim, so that at some point, let's say when he gets up to 5 tfachim, it's no longer 4 tfachim wide. But Rabbi Meir says that because there is a structure around the curvature, chokikim lahashlim, therefore yechayiv mezuzah. Rabbanan savri ein chokikim lahashlim. We're not going to imagine as if he had carved out the area, punched out those stones. Right now, he doesn't have a width of 4 tfachim, therefore it's potem mezuzah. Ton Rabbanan. Now we have a discussion about not public, but partnership owned Beis HaKnesses, which is a partnership of the Bnei Ha'ir. Beis Ha'isha. Oh, yeah, that's a separate category. And Beis HaShutvim, a partnership of 2 people in a house. Chayeves b'mezuzah. So Gemara says Pshita. Mal, the same I would have thought. It says Beisecha in the masculine. V'lo Bayis Shel Isha. V'lo Beisa. I would have thought Beisecha in the singular, v'lo Batechem, which would exclude both a Beis HaKnesses, which is owned by the public, and a partnership-owned house. If you be parted from mezuzah, Kamashmalon, the Brisa wants to tell us that in all these cases, whether it's owned by a man or a woman, whether it's owned by an individual or a group, the Chayiv mezuzah, the Emal Chinami, how do you know? Where does the Brisa derive this conclusion that in all these cases you're chayiv mezuzah? Amakra l'man yibru yemechem v'imei v'nechem. The purpose of a mezuzah is to guarantee longevity to your children. Is hani boy chaye, hani lo boy chaye? Are you going to tell me that a woman doesn't need that guarantee of long life, and partners don't need long life? Ela beisecha lamali. So why did the Torah ambiguously confuse us by using the word beisecha? Kida Rava, Yoma Rava. What do we derive from beisecha? Derech bi ascha. The way that you normally go in, and a person goes in to a door with his right foot first, assuming he's a righty, and therefore the mezuzah should be on the right side. V'chi akar inish carry when he lifts up his foot in order to move forward. Diamina akar bereisha, he picks up his right foot first, and therefore the mezuzah should be on the right side. Tanya, either we have another brisa Beis HaKnesses, uBeis HaShut Beis HaIsha metamim b'negoyim. And once again, Pshita, Mal the same. I would think this was in last week's parsha that when the Torah says Uba Asher Lo Habayis, Lo V'lo Lo V'lo Lahem, this is in the singular masculine, coming to exclude a woman's house, and coming to exclude a house that's owned by partners. How do you know that even a partnership and a woman's houses are included in Nigei Batim? On my Kra, the Torah says, "Be base Eretz Achuzaschem," which means anywhere in the land of Eretz Yisrael. And this is also the source for the halacha that Nigei Batim only apply in Eretz Yisrael. So Ela Lo Lamali, why did the Torah use the word lo to confuse us and mistakenly entertain the possibility that if it's owned by a male, or if it's by a female, or if it's owned by partners, it's not included in Tumas Negoyim? Gemara answers, what does lo teach me? Misha miyached beisolo. This is a philosophical idea that you know who is going to be afflicted by tumas nige batim. It's going to be the low philosophy person. Low means for me. Shena rotzalashal kela of the Yomer she'enlo. You come and ask him for a vacuum cleaner. Can I borrow your vacuum cleaner? No, I don't have a vacuum cleaner. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu mefarsamo. What's going to happen is after the Kohen declares that there is nigei batim, it's a chiyuv netitzo. We have to take down the house. So first we empty the house of all its all its contents, and now it becomes public knowledge that guess what? He owned a vacuum cleaner. He told you he doesn't have a vacuum cleaner to lend you, but now everybody sees that he owns the vacuum cleaner. Is therefore prat l'mashal keil acher. If he doesn't have this low philosophy, lamed vav, then he won't be afflicted by tumas negoyim. Back to Gemara. Are you? I didn't get a chance to make myself a tea. Are you telling me, Beis HaKnesses, that Beis HaKnesses mi metame b'negoyim? You just quoted a brisa that a synagogue contracts tumas negoyim. For Asan, you have a brisa. Yochel you bate knesias bate midrash metame b'negoyim tamid lomar uba asher lo abayis misha miyuchad lo yatsu elu she'em miyuchadim lo. Please remind me, Jerry. I know you have to leave some, but about tomorrow. We'll start a little later tomorrow. If you can make it, you'll tell me. Lo kasha hara beir hara bana. The status of a Beis HaKnesses is a machlokas between Rabbi and Rabbana. The sign you went to the brisa, Beis HaKnesses sheyesh lo beis dira lechazon HaKnesses chayev b'mezuzah she'ein lo beis dira eino chayev b'mezuzah. And Rabbi Meir is mechayev. Rabbi Meir says that a synagogue, even if there's no one living in the synagogue, is chayev mezuzah. But the Chacham Potrim, the Chacham say there's no chayev mezuzah in a Beis HaKnesses, and the same will apply to Beis HaMenuga, because in both cases, mezuzah and negoim, the Torah says bias. Ibai same, and the Gemara gives three answers. The second answer is hava ha Rabbanon. That everyone, all these two brises reflect the sheet of the Rabbanon of Lokasha, or the Islay Beis Dira. The first brise that says that a Beis HaKnesses is chayiv and mezuzah, that's because the sexton has his residence in the back of the shul. Hada lesbe Beis Dira. The second brise refers to a shul that doesn't have a residence. V'boy saying a third way of reconciling it, hava hada lesbe Beis Dira. Says the Gemara on top of Yud Beis Amud Aleph, hada ravim hada kfarim. Is there private ownership in a Beis HaKnesses? And it all depends on large cities versus small villages. Large cities have a Beis HaKnesses that's open to the entire world, and no one could claim ownership, and therefore it's mufka from ownership from Beischa. Mashen Ken Kfarim, that's already partnership. All the members of the village have equal share ownership in the Beis HaKnesses, and therefore it's considered Beischa, and Yochayv Mezuzah, and it's Metame Tumas Negoim. And this is where we'll stop for today. Here on the top of Daf Yud Beis Amud